The conference room buzzed with conversation, but my focus wavered as my phone lit up with an incoming call from Tyler. I stepped into the hallway, expecting the usual check-in host the trip. "When will you be home?" Instead, his voice came through cold and smug. "I'm divorcing you," he said, his tone dripping with satisfaction. "And I've already sold the apartment. You need to figure out where you're going to live. Enjoy that." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The sheer audacity of it. No warning, no remorse, just a casual, almost triumphant declaration. My grip tightened around the phone as his words sank in. "You sold the apartment?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. "Yeah," he replied with a dry laugh. "Nicole and I need the money to start fresh. She deserves better than that tiny place anyway." Nicole, the name's done. Even though I'd suspected for months, the late nights, the sudden work trips, the growing distance, but hearing her name now, so casually woven into his betrayal, sent a fire through my veins. "Sounds good," I said evenly, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. "My name is Amelia, and up until that phone call, I thought I'd married a man I could trust. Tyler and I had built a life together, or so I believed. That apartment wasn't just a home. It was the symbol of everything we had worked for, or at least, that's what I had thought." Looking back, the signs had been there: his dismissive attitude about finances, the way he brushed off my concerns with an easy smile. I assumed his confidence came from knowing what he was doing, but now, I realized it came from knowing he could manipulate me. The rest of the day passed in a blur, my mind racing. Tyler thought he'd won. He thought he could erase me from my own life with a single phone call. But there was one thing he didn't know. The apartment deed had been in my name alone for months. After refinancing earlier in the year, I had it transferred, something Tyler had agreed to without much thought, to focus on the low interest rate, to care about the fine print. He never bothered with details. And now, that carelessness was going to cost him everything. By the time I got back to my hotel room, my shock had settled into something sharper. Resolve. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. Tyler wanted a fight. Fine. But this was a fight I was going to win. I called Chloe, a lawyer and oldest friend. As I laid out this situation, my pulse raced, but my voice remained calm. "He sold the apartment," she repeated, incredulous. "Does he even realize he legally can't do that without your consent?" "Apparently not," I said, a trace of amusement creeping in. "And he thinks he's already spent the money." Chloe let out a dry laugh. "Then he's in for a rude awakening. The sale is invalid. If he took any money from the buyer, he's on the hook for fraud." Fraud, the word sent a jolt of satisfaction through me. "What's our next move?" I asked. "First, we notify the buyer that the sale isn't legal. Then, we draft a formal letter for Tyler outlining exactly how badly he just screwed himself. If he tries anything else, we take him to court." As I hung up, a strange calm settled over me. Tyler thought he'd outplayed me, that I was powerless. But he'd just set himself up for the biggest humiliation of his life. The rest of my trip, I focused on my work, compartmentalizing the storm inside me. The betrayal still burned, but the thought of watching Tyler's mock certainty crumble gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. By the time my plane landed, I was ready. Ready to face him. Ready to dismantle his lies. Ready to take back what was mine. The moment I stepped off the plane, I called Chloe. "I'm back," I said, gripping the handle of my suitcase. "What's next?" "We've already notified the buyer," she replied briskly. "They're furious, but they're cooperating, which works in our favor." "And Tyler?" "I sent the formal notice this morning," she said, outlining the illegal sale, your sole ownership, and the consequences of fraud. "He hasn't responded yet, but when he does, he's going to be livid." "Good, let him stew." When I got home, the apartment was eerily quiet. Tyler's things were still there, his jacket draped over a chair, his shoes tossed by the door, but the space felt different, the air heavier, like something had shifted. I set my suitcase down and exhaled. The confrontation would come soon enough. "And right on cue, Tyler stormed in that evening, face red with anger, his phone clutched in his hand. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, waving the letter. You're telling me I can't sell the apartment. It's half mine. No, Tyler, I said, crossing my arms. It's not. The deed has been in my name for months. You can sell what you don't own. His face twisted in confusion, then rage. What are you talking about? I pulled out the deed from my file and held it up. After we refinanced, I had the deed transferred to my name. You signed off on it. Or did you just stamp the paperwork like you always do? His silence was answer enough. His arrogance had blinded him, made him sloppy, and now he was caught. You think you're so smart, he sneered. This doesn't change anything. I already made a deal, and you're going to look like a fool when it all falls apart. I met his glare, unblinking. Try me. The sale is already void, Tyler. The buyer knows it, and they're ready to take legal action if you don't return the money. Oh, and speaking of money, I stepped closer, lowering my voice. If you've spent a single cent of that deposit, you're in even bigger trouble. For the first time, I saw Tyler's confidence waver. You don't know what you're talking about, he muttered, his eyes avoiding mine. Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about, I said, my voice calm but firm. You spent years treating me like I'm too naive to notice what you were doing. But guess what, Tyler? I've been paying attention, and now you're going to deal with the consequences. He started pacing, the frustration building in his every step. This is ridiculous, he barked. You're blowing this all out of proportion. You can just kick me out of here. I raised an eyebrow. Actually, I can't, I said. This apartment is legally mine. You can't stay here for now, but that's only because I'm giving you the courtesy of time to figure out your next move. But let me be clear, I'm not going anywhere. Over the next few days, Tyler's anger morphed into something more desperate. His calls became frantic, alternating between pleading and threatening. Meanwhile, Chloe worked tirelessly in the background. The buyer rescinded the agreement, furious with Tyler for wasting their time and money, and Chloe had already begun drafting the preliminary divorce paperwork. You're in a strong position, Amelia, she told me during one of our meetings. Tyler has no leverage. With the sale voided and fraud charges hanging over his head, he'll have to cooperate if he wants to avoid a bigger mess. Her words offered relief, but they also reminded me of how much I'd let Tyler control my life for far too long. I'd overlooked his dismissive attitude and arrogance, convincing myself it wasn't worth the fight. But now, I saw the full extent of what I'd given up, and I wasn't about to let him take anything more from me. That night, Laura came over to help me organize the apartment. We boxed up Tyler's things, stacking them neatly in the corner of the living room. How's he taking all of this? She asked, holding up one of his ties with a smirk. Not well, I said, a laugh escaping me despite myself. He's still convinced he can't talk his way out of it, but I'm not budging. Good, she said, tossing the tie into the box. He doesn't deserve a single inch of your space or your time. I nodded, feeling a rush of gratitude for her support. For so long, I felt isolated in my marriage, carrying the emotional and financial weight while Tyler took all the credit. But now, I had people in my corner, and that made all the difference. The final piece of my plan fell into place today. Tyler showed up at the apartment with Nicole. I was sitting at the dining table, going over some paperwork, when they walked in like they owned the place. Nicole looped her arm through Tyler's and looked around with a smug smile. So, this is where we're staying, she said, her voice dripping with entitlement. I stood up, my heart pounding, but my resolve unwavering. No, I said firmly, this is where Tyler was staying. You, Nicole, would not be staying here. Her smile faltered, and she looked to Tyler, who seemed equally stunned. What is this? He demanded, his voice rising. This, I said, gesturing to the apartment, is my home, not yours, not hers, and certainly not a hotel for you to shack up in after stabbing me in the back. Nicole's face hardened, but she didn't respond. Tyler, on the other hand, looked like he was ready to explode. You can't do this, he shouted. You're being unreasonable. I met his gaze, unflinching. No, Tyler, what's unreasonable is thinking you could sell my home, pocket the money, and expect me to just roll over. You're lucky I haven't pressed criminal charges. For a moment, Tyler stood frozen in the doorway, his face red with rage. Nicole, her arms crossed, looked uncomfortable but remained silent. You're being ridiculous, Amelia, he spat, his desperation growing. You can just kick me out of my own home. I stepped forward, my voice calm but unwavering. This is my home, Tyler. The deed has been in my name for months. You know that. You signed the paperwork without even reading it, like you always do. Nicole shot a confused look at Tyler, her fingers tightening around her purse strap. Wait, what's she talking about? She demanded, her tone sharp. You said this was your apartment, that you sold it. Tyler flinched, trying to dismiss her concern. It's complicated, I'll handle it. I shook my head, stepping closer. Oh, it's not complicated. You tried to sell an apartment that doesn't belong to you. The sale is void, and as of right now, you don't have a leg to stand on. Nicole's composure cracked. You mean the money you said you had? Her voice rose in disbelief. Oh my God, did you lie about that too? Nicole, let me explain. Tyler began, holding his hands up in defense, but she wasn't having it. No, I cut him off. Let me explain. Tyler tried to sell the apartment behind my back, thinking he could pocket the money and leave me with nothing. What he didn't know is that I had the deed transferred to my name months ago. So not only did he fail to sell it, but he also committed fraud by pretending he could. Nicole's mouth hung open, gasping for air. Fraud, she whispered, backing away from Tyler. Are you serious? Yes, fraud, I said, my voice hard, and I'm prepared to press charges if he doesn't get his things and leave by the end of the day. Tyler's facade crumbled. You can't do this, Amelia, he said, his voice pleading. We've been together for 6 years. You can just throw me out. I stepped forward, the finality of my words like steel. You threw me out the moment you made that phone call. You told me you were divorcing me and laughed about me having to find a new place to live. You didn't just betray me, Tyler. You tried to ruin me. So don't stand there and act like you're the victim. Nicole took another step back, her eyes darting between us. This is insane, she gasped. She muttered, clutching her purse tighter. You didn't tell me any of this, Tyler. You said you had everything handled. Tyler turned to her, panic taking over his features. Nicole, I can't fix this. I just need. She cut him off with a sharp raise of her hand. Don't, just don't. I'm not getting dragged into your mess. Without another word, she spun on her heel and stormed out, leaving him standing there, stunned and speechless. I couldn't help but smile as the door clicked shut behind her. Looks like you're on your own, I said, turning back to Tyler. Now, let's talk about what happens next. Tyler sank into the couch, his hands burying his face as his shoulders slumped in defeat. Amelia, please, I screwed up. I know that, but you don't have to do this. You're right, I said, grabbing a folder from the kitchen counter and placing it on the coffee table in front of him. I don't have to do this, but I'm going to. He glanced at the folder, his face draining of color. This is the divorce paperwork. My lawyer has already drafted it, and I suggest you sign it quickly. The sooner you do, the sooner we can both move on. Tyler stared at the folder for a long moment, his hands trembling as they hovered near it. You really hate me that much? I let out a bitter laugh. Hate you? No, Tyler, I don't hate you. I feel sorry for you. You had everything, someone who loved you, a home we built together, and you threw it all away because you couldn't see past your own ego. I stood, my heart pounding in my chest, but my resolve unwavering. I want you out of here by the end of the day. Take your things and figure out where you're going to stay. This is the last time I'm giving you any grace. Tyler opened his mouth to argue but stopped himself, his shoulders sagging in defeat. Fine, he muttered. I'll go. Good, I said, walking toward the door. And don't even think about trying anything else. Chloe's already handling everything. And the next time you cross a line, I won't hesitate to let the courts handle it. As I opened the door, Tyler slowly stood, grabbing his coat. He didn't look at me as he walked out, his footsteps heavy with the weight of his defeat. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness knit for him, but for the life we could have had if he had been the man I thought he was. But that sadness quickly faded, replaced by a deep sense of relief. I closed the door behind him, locking it with the new key I'd had made. This was my home now, and no one, especially not Tyler, would take it away from me again. The silence that filled the apartment after Tyler left was deafening. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. The weight of his presence, his entitlement, and his lies was gone. All that remained was me, the home I'd built, and the quiet realization that I had won, not just against him, but against every doubt I'd ever had about standing up for myself. I stood in the center of the living room, taking in the emptiness where his things had once been. The oversized gaming chair, the framed jerseys cluttering the walls, and the tacky coffee table he'd insisted on keeping were all gone. The apartment looked cleaner, brighter, like it was mine again. That evening, Lauren came by with takeout and a bottle of wine. "Is he really gone?" she asked, dramatically plopping down on the couch with a sigh. "Gone and not coming back," I said, pouring 2 glasses of wine. I gave him until the end of the day to pack his things. He didn't argue. Lauren raised her glass. 2 fresh starts and well-deserved victories. I clinked my glass against hers, feeling the weight of the past week slowly lifting from my shoulders. To never letting anyone walk all over me again. Over the next few days, I began to reclaim the apartment. Piece by piece, I rearranged the furniture, moved my favorite artwork into the living room, and filled the space with things that made me happy. It wasn't just about redecorating. It was about turning this apartment into a reflection of who I was and the person Tyler had tried to mold me into. Chloe called with updates on the legal proceedings, her voice filled with determination, the kind of confidence that made me feel invincible. "The fraud charges are off the table, since the buyer decided not to pursue them," Chloe explained, "but the divorce paperwork is moving along smoothly. Once Tyler signs, you'll be officially free." Hearing the word free made my chest tighten. It wasn't just about the divorce seat, was about everything I'd been carrying for years. The resentment, the self-doubt, the feeling of being trapped in a marriage that didn't value me. It was all finally being lifted. Tyler tried to reach out a few times. His messages ranged from half-hearted apologies to pathetic attempts to guilt me into reconciling. "I made a mistake," one read. "Can we at least talk about this?" Another was more desperate. "You're going to ruin me, Amelia. Is that what you want?" I didn't reply. For once, I wasn't going to waste my energy trying to fix something that was broken beyond repair. He'd made his choices, and now he was dealing with the consequences. By the end of the week, the apartment felt like a completely new space, warm, inviting, and entirely mine. As I sat today on the couch with a cup of tea, the city lights twinkling outside the window, I reflected on everything that had happened. Tyler's betrayal had been a shock, but it had also been a wake-up call. For too long, I had let myself believe that I didn't deserve better, that I had to settle for whatever scraps of respect and love he decided to throw my way. But now, I knew better. I wasn't just reclaiming my apartment. I was reclaiming my life. A month later, everything looked different. Not because of any drastic renovations, but because of how it felt. The apartment was a reflection of my tastes, my personality, my newfound independence. Without Tyler's clutter and overbearing presence, the space felt lighter, freer. The divorce was moving along smoothly. Chloe had handled everything with precision, ensuring Tyler had no room to argue or complicate the process. He signed the papers without much fuss, likely realizing he had no leverage. There was no grand showdown, no emotional plea to work things out. Just a cold, clean break, bittersweet and deeply satisfying. One day, while sorting through some old papers, I came across a photo of Tyler and me from our early years together. We were smiling, arms around each other, full of hope and promise. I stared at it for a moment, letting the memories wash over me. There had been good times, moments when I truly believed we were building a life together, but those moments were gone, overshadowed by years of neglect, manipulation, and betrayal. I tucked the photo into an envelope and put it away in a drawer. It wasn't worth keeping out in the open, but I wasn't ready to throw it away either. It was a part of my past, but it didn't define me anymore. Lauren and I celebrated the finalized divorce with dinner and drinks at a trendy rooftop bar downtown. "You've got a glow going," she said, raising her cocktail in a toast. "Single life suits you." I laughed, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in years. "It's not the single life," I said. "It's the freedom." For the first time, I didn't feel like I was living under someone else's rules. We toasted to that, and as the night went on, I felt a growing sense of pride in myself. I had faced one of the hardest moments of my life and come out stronger. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. Back at home, I started planning for the future. The apartment had become more than a refugee. It was a symbol of everything I had reclaimed, but I knew I wouldn't stay there forever. Someday, I'd move to a new place, one without any lingering shadows of my life with Tyler. Until then, I was determined to make the most of every moment in the space I had fought so hard to keep. As I curled up on the couch that night, a sense of peace washed over me. I thought about how Tyler had laughed during that phone call, so certain that he had won. And I couldn't help but smile. His arrogance had been his downfall, and my quiet strength had been my salvation. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter. One where I called the shots. One where I chose happiness on my own terms. And after a long time, I felt truly free.